well, Jordy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I was just asking how great I look since I'm wearing the t-shirt you gave me.
Beautiful. And I gave it to you the last time I saw you, and then the last time I saw you was at the Freakish Challenge, and a lot has changed in the world since then, huh?
Oh, Jesus, yes. I mean, it's funny. It's been a very intense year in so many ways, not only in our sport, but in relationships and the way it's just been crazy. I mean,
hmm
how have you been holding up? I mean, has COVID actually affected your life, your training in a very big way?
a little bit. I would say that I have to, count my blessings. I've been very fortunate that in the grand scheme of things, not much has changed. You know, uh, Very fortunate family, friends, loved ones are happy and healthy.
Hmm.
We are all, we're all employed. We have our jobs still to and work that's fulfilling to do. The deep minor details of life have changed a little bit with the lockdown around COVID. But for the most part, the essentials, the things that matter the most have stayed relatively the same. One of the kind of uh, I guess unforeseen blessings is that for about a month and a half, my fiance Tiffany was off of work, right, because they shut everything down. And we just got to spend a month and a half together every day, building a little routine in our apartment, in our place that we had never done before, just to spend that much consistent time every single day. And it was beautiful. We got to wake up, have every meal together, train together, go on walks every day, and some little moments of being present with one another that were phenomenal. And granted, it was under unfortunate circumstances, but that was a really big building block in our relationship. Because we're planning on getting married, so like that's those types of moments and things like that I think are crucial, and it's made an appreciation for some of those things, like our family, like our friends, and that quality
Yeah.
connective tissue time that we lost out on for a little bit that we're slowly starting to get back.
Yeah, I mean, they can test a relationship, but I think you managed to keep her, so it's good news. Well done.
Yes, I haven't turned
And
up missing yet.
yeah, good, good. Well done, Tommy. And I did see you train quite a lot. I mean, you
hmm
you used the opportunity to go live on Instagram, like, and you kept training hard. So I saw like you doing all kinds of workouts in your living room,
hmm
chairs, all kinds of stuff. So you did put in the work.
I was trying to, and it was one of those. It was really a situation where I'm very fortunate. I'm generally pretty motivated to train. It's something I look forward to every day.
Hmm.
I'm a very physical minded person, and I realized that um, Tiffany isn't as much. And that's where we kind of play off each other a little bit. Like I'm the one that's like driving us a little bit and to kind of build that inertia for her to get the ball rolling. And I realized, like, well, if I'm doing this and I'm making do with the best that I have, then I should put that out in the world because I think that can help some other people kind of figure out ways to make do with what they have too, and maybe hopefully motivate them a little bit to do some things, and
Yeah.
maybe bring a smile on their face to see if this guy's getting after it, there's no reason why I can't. And especially with the all of the health issues that were rampant, are getting outside for a little bit, getting some vitamin D,
Yeah.
getting the blood going, and getting that immune system up is a crucial part. And I just wanted to try and share it with others.
That's interesting because I did enjoy it, and sometimes I don't do it myself. I don't share stuff with the world. But but I really enjoy like seeing other people, and I did enjoy seeing you, and it, sent a comment, and I know
hmm
Tiffany was holding the phone, so I was there. I was enjoying the moment. We were like a bunch of us like training together, so I really enjoyed
Yeah.
it. But you mentioned something also interesting, like during the COVID, you felt sort of you felt there was a use to what you were doing, and I'm thinking, you being who you are, a bit of a personality within the sport, and you're well known. Do you feel the responsibility to be that guy that shows that shares with the world how you're living and maybe trying to inspire others?
I think a little bit, but not. It doesn't feel like an obligation for me, if that makes sense. I view it kind of as like this. I get to do this. This is something um, that I've chosen for my life, and that has, you know, other people have decided that they enjoy, and I feel very fortunate for that. And it's one of those things where I started CrossFit, and I start in a long time, even before CrossFit, in my previous profession in mental health services and psychology. My
Mm-hmm.
The driving factor for me was like I want to help people. I had a
Mm-hmm.
very important kind of, I don't want to say turning point, but maybe so, turning point in my life where one of my best friends growing up passed away from health complications, and those health complications ultimately stemmed from some mental health complications as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so I lost someone that was very, very close to me that I grew up with, and that was like, well, I could have helped him more, and I just didn't see it. I didn't understand
Mm-hmm.
it. And so I want to educate myself to be able to see it and understand it, whether it's the physical, whether it's the mental, and try and prevent those types of things from happening. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the way that's applied in everyday life is, being at the gym and coaching people and teaching them about fitness, working in a mental health clinic, working with children and people that you can set them on a better path early on. And those were my two professions that I've really had. And then the media came into a play because basically media is a megaphone for CrossFit, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're tasked with broadcasting and sharing with the world everything that's going on, and it it looked like an opportunity for me to be able to do that on a much broader scale.
Mm-hmm.
The reach that I have in the gym, while just as important, is smaller than the reach I have when I go on camera and I talk about the sport. I talk about fitness. I travel around the world and get to share fitness with people. And so I think that I always try to keep that in mind. So when we get into a situation like this, like COVID, it's just a continuation of what I've always been doing. It looks a little bit different. It feels a little bit different. Maybe it's a little bit more interpersonal here, but like the common thread amongst it all is like, hey, I have this great opportunity to share something that I love with people, and it can help them. No brainer for me. I'm going to do it every time.
Super interesting. I mean, one of the things I really love about fitness training and about our sport, it is that it brings people together from very different backgrounds, and we all meet in the middle, and we share so much because we're like so different. So I hope you don't mind if I ask you what you just mentioned about like your past before CrossFit and your profession, because I had no idea you were involved in the psychology world. So
Hmm.
I wonder if you could give us a bit more of an idea of what you were doing for CrossFit and before we go into more of your current life. But what is it that you were involved in?
So I went to I switched my after that event that happened where my one of my best friends passed away. That happened in my sophomore year of university,
Hmm.
and my second year. And after that, I switched my major and I went into mental health and clinical psychology specifically, and that's what I graduated with my degree in. And I decided I wanted to go into mental health services, and you know I needed another degree to be a clinical psychologist, like a doctorate or master's degree, a secondary degree. But I wanted to work in the field until that time. And so then I worked as what was called a rehabilitation specialist or a caseworker. So within a mental health clinic, I worked for what was a nonprofit foster and adoption care agency. So in my area, in my hometown, in the general area where I grew up, you had children and families that became part of our system because there was a foster home situation or an adoption had happened. So these kids and these families needed some support from the mental health side of things, help them learn and understand and create a better attachment and relationship within that family system. So when, say, a young boy and he gets adopted by his grandmother or he gets adopted by a family, our agency would help them process that, like the legal aspect of making that go
Hmm.
through. But on top of them, we were able to provide a psychiatrist, a clinical psychologist, marriage and family therapist, a rehabilitation specialist, which I was an extension of therapy out in the field.
Hmm.
So typically, in a lot of senses, the therapeutic sessions are either family comes into the clinic or the clinician goes to their home. But a lot of times the children and our kids had issues outside of the home, at school, with friends and social situations,
Of
and
course.
sometimes at home too. And the therapist can't always be there for that. So my job was working directly with the therapist, building that treatment plan, and then helping be an extension of that treatment plan in the field for them. And so I did that for a few years. It was heartbreaking stuff. I worked with lower socioeconomic status families, so I saw a lot of hardship, a lot of heartbreak. It was very, very heavy, and personally, it took an emotional toll on me. And then CrossFit became my outlet for that. Mm-hmm. I found CrossFit a year after I graduated, right around early 2009, late 2008. And that was my outlet. I go to CrossFit, I let it all out and exercise and get that catharsis from the training. And eventually I started to see parallels between all the stories of people like, I got my life back together, I lost 100 pounds, or mentally I'm such a better place when I'm training, and all these different stories. And something kind of clicked for me, like I want to be a part of that. I've always thought about what is the bridge between the mental and the physical, and how to incorporate that in some way. And so I started training. I got my level 1 in 2010, started coaching, decided to open up an affiliate, and right around that time, I just got kind of burnt out with the work that I was doing. So I decided to switch and start running an affiliate. And through that, after running an affiliate for 2 years, I got asked to help out with the media team, just because the person I ran the affiliate with happened to be Dave Castro's brother.
Okay, cool.
So, and my first affiliate that I ever walked into, the first gym I ever trained at, was the Ranch in Aromas. So
really?
My best friend grew up across the highway from it. So
such a cool story.
Yeah, it was crazy. My best friend one day was like, when I first discovered it, goes, "Hey, we trained together every day. We worked out at the local gym." He goes, "Hey, I found this workout program that my cousin lost 100 pounds on and got his life back together, got off medication. I think we should try it." And I'm like, "Well, what is it?" And he didn't know how to describe it. He goes, "Honestly, these two crazy Mexican brothers just punishing people out at this ranch." I'm like, "All right, sounds cool." So we did one workout. I was hooked. It was like, this is what I'm doing from now on. And, that grew into becoming a trainer eventually and running the affiliate. And then in 2012, I got asked to help out with the media team. And that was just carrying luggage, carrying equipment, setting stuff up, running errands, grabbing coffee, stuff like that. And I just kind of told myself, like, this is a really cool opportunity to be a part of something that I love on a bigger scale. And there's still that thread of helping people. And the sport and the environment and the community helps people, so I can do that on a macro level. And so I just was like, whatever they ask, I'm just going to say yes. They want me they want me to carry coffee, say yes. They want me to carry equipment, say yes. And I'll learn and figure. I'll find my place eventually. And I'm a huge sports nerd. I love sports and I love analytics, and that just kind of that marriage and that opportunity came about 2 years later when I had a producer and a friend who's a close friend of mine now, gave me a shot, and it worked out.
Very, very well. But it's funny how it comes across. I mean, you're like this personality that's so welcoming, and I think that the story you just told explains why. I mean, you come from a you're just it's interesting to see someone so involved in sport, but really just didn't think that it was going to happen that way. It just happened, right? You're on a path to helping people, and then found the sport, and all of a sudden the sport you found is actually such a great tool to help people, and it has such, and that area fascinates me greatly, because I also have a history of mental health in the family, and we've spoken about this so much, about how you can really attack mental health with physical activity. And it's something that you don't understand until you just shut up and show up and just work out. And you see it very quickly changing physically and internally. So I find it fascinating that you have that background, and that you actually found the sport, and that you're using it for a much more global objective in a way. And I really, and this is one of the things that I love about the fitness and our sport is just that sense of community that's so hard to explain. I think it's very much based on the idea of just helping each other and caring for each other. And really, the sport, in my eyes, was sort of more of just a celebration. A barbecue gone bad.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than just let's find out where's the fittest. Yeah, I'm sure, but in my eyes, at least when I started, I was like, this is so much fun. I'm loving the people here, and I just love that these guys working out with me but you've said so many interesting things, because then you start CrossFit. I didn't know Aromas was sort of a CrossFit box. I didn't know. I thought it was sort of a lost house in the middle of nowhere.
It was kind of like a low key affiliate. It wasn't like
it is low key.
It wasn't like they ran a million classes every day. The way it basically was when I showed up is there was a morning group that like got together every morning and worked out, and then there was two kind of afternoon groups that got together around the 4:30, 5:30 time frame after work, and it was kind of loose structured, but it was an affiliate, but it was just kind of like not as structured and as organized, and it was the only at the time. It was the only affiliate. So Santa Cruz sits on the coast, and where I'm at now, and just inland, it's right on Highway 101, which is one of the most famous highways in the United States. Goes all the way up California. But there was a stretch from San Jose probably to San Luis Obispo, which is probably 250 miles at least, where there was no affiliates. There was the ranch as an informal affiliate, maybe, or in Morgan Hill, just south of that. But there wasn't really anything in between, and nothing in my hometown. So that's when we were like, all right, we should open up another affiliate. It's kind of like a partner affiliate to the ranch, and we'll run that for a little bit. But I don't. If a lot of people have the same story, where CrossFit struck such a chord, for me, and it was funny because, and I'm embarrassed to say this now, but like so much. I feel like any athlete or anyone you can go back decades, 60s, 70s, they understand, back to the, Roger Bannister in the first 4-minute mile. We've always understood how much the mind affects the body performance-wise, right? But mental health as an expansive area of science they're still very new. Mm-hmm. But we always saw it as a one-way street, right? We always saw it as the mind controls the body, and that information, and that's a top-down process, and it just flows that direction. But the more and more, like, we worked out and with CrossFit and stuff like that, and we got to understand mental health from an illness standpoint, from a variety of disorders and diagnoses that we can understand and actually help, we started to realize that is actually a two-way street. That channel actually goes both directions. Yes, the mind can control the body, but also the body can help support and influence the mind in many ways. And it's funny because I think there was this kind of old school mentality in the mental health services realm that looked at it more towards that one-way street. And as I was kind of coming up through CrossFit, I was like, no, wait, this is way different. And obviously there were people out there that understood it already, but that was kind of my self-discovery. And that discovery really drove me to pursuing CrossFit so much more, because I was like, okay, I like helping mental health from this direction on the street a little bit more. And that's what makes a lot of sense to me, and that's what really resonates with me.
And it's also so tangible. It's almost so accessible at the same time. You can really tell someone, let's just run from here to here, lift this, do it twice. And, it's the mind is such a powerful thing. It's so difficult to control. I mean, I'm going to ask you as well whether you train the mind or whether you do something else than physical. But I just think if you don't know where to start and you really are going through the process, it's just so easy to just showing up somewhere where there's a good community that they're just going to say hello, and they're going to say your name, and they're just going to just welcome you and go through a workout. Immediately you feel that something is changing. And so I feel so passionate about what you're saying about that route from the physical to the mental, because it's just There's no excuse. You can do it. You can go tomorrow and just show up and do it. I mean, and what does your training look like these days? Are you training CrossFit and you do any other things to complement your CrossFit lifestyle?
Yeah, so I probably train CrossFit 5 to 6 days a week. I go to the affiliate here, West Fitness in Santa Cruz. Amazing, amazing gym. They
Really?
do Daniel Jahangard, who's the owner and head trainer, does a phenomenal job of working with his coaches, developing his coaches, putting together comprehensive training programs that work on skills, that work on strength, that work on barbell movements, and it really cultivate a sense of community that I would point to as like this is a beautiful example of what an affiliate can be like. Even if they're not just pumping out like regional and games level athletes, right? And on top of that, so pre-COVID, I trained martial arts quite a bit.
Hmm.
So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, Muay Thai. I like the cerebralness of like the martial arts in that regard and the discipline. Um, and I like the. It sounds weird, but I like the consequences that are tied to martial arts. There's
Hmm.
something very primal and very powerful to me that like this discipline is going to prevent me from getting kicked in the face, or this discipline is going to prevent me from someone choking me
Yeah.
out, and there's something very um it's like I said, primal and organic. Like we obviously the quality of life and everything has improved, and we're not faced with the regular threats that we were thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago. But something about tapping into that and understanding how to control that, to me, is another aspect of like mindset and mental strength that allows you to have better control of things outside of the gym, and when things get stressful and anxious or whatever, have a better grasp on those because you've tested the waters and tiptoed to the edge of the cliff to peer over in other areas of life. And so I do that quite a bit. And then it was kind of a three-headed monster for me. So it was martial arts, it was CrossFit, and it was long distance running.
Mm.
So a year ago, almost, yeah, almost to the day, a year ago I ran my first ultra marathon. So
Wow.
I ran 50 kilometer, 50, they say it's 50-ish. So it ended up being about 53 kilometers. And it was a trail run up a mountain and out near San Diego, and I've always enjoyed running, so it allowed me to have some me time. It's just me out there running, and I'm in my own head, and I'm thinking, and I'm observing, and doing a lot of mindfulness practice that are tied, but applied in the sport space. So those are kind of the big things for me that I do, and I've had to cut back on those a little bit because of COVID and work and timing and stuff. But it's definitely things that I'll do the rest of my life.
Yeah, of course. And slowly but surely, you start finding what are the foundations of what I think many of us go into CrossFit as a second chance. Like I don't know whether you were in sports during high school or but then something happens. You think you don't need it. You think you need to evolve. You think you need to be more of a professional, and then I'm talking to myself, but then you get lost, and then you find CrossFit, and you go like, okay, this I should have never stopped. This is what I need, and then
Hmm.
once you're fit again, then you can explore a bit more and say, okay, my formula is, and then we all have a formula, and that's why I was so
Yeah.
interested in knowing yours, because I mean, I would have never guessed you said like long distance running. You're a big guy. You're
Hmm.
like tall. You're big. You're tall. You're strong. So I bet like running 50 kilometers is a challenge. I mean, I don't know how physical it is. I don't know whether you enjoy more the mental aspect, but
Hmm.
it is a challenge. I mean, I don't know whether you're thinking of like going longer distances, or you're comfortable with what you're doing now.
So my goal, the two distant races that I want to do before I die is a 50 miler. So that's I don't know what that translates to kilometers.
Yeah, 1 mile is 1.6.
6.
So
So
let's say roughly double.
so yeah, so about
That'd be
70, 80 kilometers. and
Yeah.
then I want to do a 100-kilometer race. There's one
Wow.
actually very close by. Those are the two I want to run. I
Yeah.
like
So you like
I do
distances?
I
Like
do
challenges, like really, really life-changing challenges. Those are like,
I think I get it. I think I get it from my dad, but a lot of my friends tell me I'm like the most competitive person that they've ever met, and that goes with playing cards or playing spike ball or for throwing the
good to
frisbee
know.
around or and I think that's one of the things that CrossFit made is so interesting to me, but because you're also competing with yourself, and I like competing with myself and pushing myself, and I like I like I like seeing just like I'm curious too. So I'm like, can I do that?
Yeah.
Will my body respond? Like if I don't finish those races, yeah, I'll be bummed, but I'll be more happy that I tried and that I got to see whether or not my body was capable of doing that. I think the 50-kilometer race really opened up my eyes to some things because the year prior, myself, Rory, and a few others from HQ were training for a 50 miler, so a 70 to 80K race, and we were in great shape. I mean, I was running half marathons at like, that 9 minute pace, 8 to 9 minute pace for my miles, like all the way through. I mean, I was flying.
Yes.
I was in great shape, and it was carrying over to other things. And then there were wildfires here in California, and the air quality was so bad that they had to cancel the race.
Yeah. I
So it
heard.
was this big like we didn't get the race, and so the following year, we all got laid off. Things got crazy,
Yeah.
but then another race came up, and it was a 50K, and it was shorter, and I think my mindset of how I trained before carried over, but I thought I didn't have to train as much. I thought my base was better, so I basically jumped into that race not having run more than 8 or 9 miles in a single run
Hmm.
over the last 3 months, and I was
Wow.
still able to finish. And even when I think at mile 18, my one of my legs started cramping. By mile 24, my both legs were cramping, but I was able to finish. And it was one of those things where I realized, okay, like I can do I even when I'm maybe not that prepared, I can do some of these things. So it,
Yeah.
it strikes your curiosity and is like, well, if that wasn't my limit, what is my limit? And
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
can I now? Granted, I have to be smarter and actually train this time, but how can I go find that again and without putting myself in ridiculous danger, do that.
Yeah, of course. You know your body now, and you know yourself, and over the years you're learning. So you're pushing, but you're pushing within something that feels right. You're not
Hmm.
going all in. You mentioned, you go to Aromas to train, and then somebody asked you to if you could help, can you help them with the media? I mean, was it like this? I mean, because I think you also were lucky enough to kind of be part of the birth of the biggest moment in the sport, right? I mean, I don't know whether you saw the sport, let the whole thing start, but definitely when media started, it was when the rest of the world started to know what was going on, and we actually fell in love with you guys and the athletes and everything else, right? So,
Hmm.
how does that start? You start with the media and you go straight into being the commentator for the games, or there's a process. How did the whole thing happen?
So in 2011 was the first year I worked with the media team. At the 2010 games, I actually was a volunteer on the equipment crew with Rogue. So the first year at the StubHub Center in Carson, I was basically just setting up and moving equipment and doing that kind of stuff. And in 2011, I got asked to go help out at regionals that year. So I got asked to travel to all the East Coast United States regionals and start carrying equipment around for them. I did that for that year. In 2011, I was basically an administrative assistant for one of one of the games event staff. So I was basically running around helping someone as a sidekick at the games. The following year, I got asked to do a similar job and travel around with a bunch of the regionals, but at that point, I had started to have conversations with people at headquarters about CrossFit and my fascination with the sport and what I thought was interesting or not. And so they had a role called the unofficial title was a CrossFit expert. So we had all these media professionals now that were covering the sport locally at these regionals that had no idea what CrossFit is. We have camera guys, we have a director, but in loose terms, my job was kind of like a producer. They don't understand what CrossFit is. So I have to dictate to them what CrossFit is, who they should be watching, what is a notable performance, what we need to capture a little bit, and then let them do their thing. And so I did that, and apparently I got some good reviews apparently from that. And so then after 2012 regionals, they decided to hire me on full time, and I basically became a production assistant for the update show. So helping out, set up, tear down. I was the only person that could work the teleprompter properly. Everyone else kept screwing it up, and I was the only one, I guess, that knew how to work it. Maybe all my time playing video games as a kid made me had good hand dexterity, but
it don't sound that difficult, though. I mean,
it didn't. But you'd be amazed, like doing it at the right pace to match up how everybody reads.
Okay, so it's I always thought it was like automatic, you know.
Yeah.
For some reason, it hear you say the words and it kept going.
Yeah, ours was like a little dial wheel. But the funny thing was, a year later, ever since from 2013 on, we've never used teleprompters. So I've never used a teleprompter.
Oh,
Pat,
really?
We got rid of them completely, and we've never used them since. Yeah, because once I started doing other roles, no one could use the teleprompter, so we just got rid of it.
So I was gonna say, oh, great decision, because it did feel more personal. It did feel more informal. No, it was just like there was no Tommy to actually get the machine going.
And I think they also wanted that more personal feel too, because I think everyone was better just talking naturally. But yeah, in 2013, I got moved to basically being their studio manager. So I was responsible for the day's ins and outs and management of the studio, ordering equipment, getting it set up, moving, arranging everything, making sure everything was ready for the shoots. I would even operate the jib camera at times, the big arm crane. And at that time, we had a producer come in. His name's Charlie Doobie. He produced this last weekend's coverage of the games. He produced the Rogue Invitational. He's produced the Rogue Invitational both years. He's produced the games, Mayhem Classic, a lot of the good stuff you've seen. He's been the producer for it. Great mind for television, excellent guy. I would start pitching ideas for them. I would start writing stats out and content ideas for Pat and for Rory and for Miranda, for Maddie Curley, who was there at the time, Nicole Christensen, all of our talent. I was writing stats and ideas and stuff for. And Charlie was just like, dude, you're a trainer. You've been around the sport a long time. You have ties to the ranch. Like, you're a good talker. I think we should have you become one of our analysts. Our boss at the time wasn't too keen on that, but he left in 2014. So after a year of managing the studio and writing content and putting stuff together for our camera people, they gave me an opportunity. So they're like, hey, we're going to write this segment all about the leaderboard and the numbers, and you're going to be the analyst for it. Yeah. And we're going to start to get your feet wet. And, obviously I wasn't great at it at first, and I had to learn the ins and outs and get more comfortable talking on camera. But that was my first opportunity, and then we just kept with it. And I had a tremendous team of people that were supportive. Charlie, Sean, Rory, Pat Sherwood would not be where I'm at without their support, and their help and their guidance and all of that. And that they allowed me to really flourish and step into that role. And eventually that grew to becoming one of our lead analysts and our basically one of our lead, we didn't have an official title for it, but I was basically our stats and numbers and historian person on site. We had other people that helped out too, that didn't work at HQ full time, but I was our go-to guy for that. And
it was
that
so
eventually,
much fun.
Yeah, it allowed me. Go ahead.
No, I mean your role was so much fun because all of a sudden we were getting a real sport. We were actually talking about it. It's so great talking about the community and the blah blah blah. But then all of a sudden we felt that the sport was growing because we were getting data analysis, insights, and opinions, and it was just so great to follow what you were saying.
Hmm. And it was a blast because that stuff, honestly, I used to do just for fun growing up. I my dad my dad's a big sports fan. I'm a big sports fan. All of my friends are big sports fan. I grew up playing every sport on the planet. So naturally you have your favorite pro teams and all of those things. And I'm a big nerd. I like nerding out, whether it's CrossFit, whether it's coffee, whether it's, Marvel comics, whether it's bourbon, whether it's whatever it is. If I find something I'm interested in, I just like nerding out on it. I like learning all the details of the history and all of the things around it. And I think that's where my curiosity kind of helps in that role.
Hmm.
And it just kind of played well at I was kind of, right place at the right time and had a lot of support and a lot of support and help from others. And it allowed me to honestly, like, in 2018, when I got to be on CBS, which is the biggest television network in the world, and I got to stand next to Rory, like one of my good friends, and alongside Brent Stover, who is the host from CBS, who's an absolute pro, and he's hosting the biggest college football shows in the country now. And I'm sitting there like, how did this like goofy, lanky Mexican kid from a farm town in the middle of California, like, how am I on CBS right now? Like, how do I get to do this? And I feel very, very grateful for that. And I try to hold on to that feeling, because it helps drive my decision making and in my treatment of others and things like that along the way. And it's very important to me.
But I think you earned it. It's just the door opened. You were there. You had the knowledge, and you just faced the challenge and took the opportunity, and things went really, really well. And I think we all felt that the sport was growing, and one of the great things that the sport was doing was involving their people. And I think CrossFit's been great at doing this. I see pictures of. I saw a picture of Rory and Heber the other day from the 2010 games. Heber looks like
a baby.
10, yeah, 10, and 50% less cool than he does today. And I saw pictures of Mark. So I really felt that I think, and we've seen this all over the world. The sport lands, and then things need to be done, and you ask your friends, and these friends learn, and we do it better next year. I mean, you've been to the Freakers Challenge, and 3,000 people in the stadium, and it's basically just us, the guys that opened an affiliate here and that started, with 10 people, and then, so I thought that was beautiful, and that's what the sport was doing so well. And then you guys, you were the OGs. Okay, these guys, they were just friends. They needed someone to be a part of the media team. They got their people and started, and the sport was at its peak. I mean, we had superstars. The games were growing. We were learning. Of course, the sport is, part of it. It's not the whole thing. And then all of a sudden, and you guys knew, we had Rory, we had Pat, we had Sean, such a great team. And then all of a sudden, the whole thing collapses. And I don't think anybody understood the decision. And I wonder if you have more of an insight of what motivated the decision and whether it was the right thing to do.
I'm obviously a little bit biased because I was on some would say the losing end of that decision, right? I don't think it was the right decision in how they played it. I think there were some changes that they made that ultimately I think were good and that will provide some fruit long term, because I think sometimes some of the changes were a little outside of the box, and sometimes you have to think outside of the box to find that next area of big growth. But I think how they went about the changes, I think some of the changes that happened in terms of just completely nuking the media team, get rid of social media, basically losing your media arm and your ability to communicate and engage with the community directly and instantly I just don't think it was a great decision. I think there was ways to keep that going while also making the shifts that Greg Glassman, who was the owner at the time, wanted to make. He wanted to make a shift towards a different focus of the company. That's his right to do that. He is totally, that is, as the owner and founder, he can 100% do that. However, do I agree that getting rid of your media team and the platform that allows you to communicate that change and actively create content around that? No, I don't think that was a great decision. I think there was a lot of political elements to that drove that decision, which is why I think it was wrong. I think especially in this space in CrossFit, in a community, in a sport that is so people oriented, changing people's lives over politics seems kind of crazy.
It's funny. I don't think we down here I don't think I know what the politics behind the decision were. So could you elaborate on that a bit?
So Greg was not a fan of the games. He doesn't like the games. Mm-hmm. I've said that before. I've said it on the podcast. It's just not his cup of tea. He's not a sports guy. He's not a sport fan in general. I think he likes CrossFit at its core as an underground, revolutionary fitness revolution. Yeah, like that kind of fights against the establishment a little bit. And the sport in its growth, in its presentation, was not that, because it had become mainstream now, right? Yeah. We are on the biggest network with a big audience, and we're able to spread the CrossFit methodology and the sport beyond limits that bring it out of the underground. And I think that just didn't sit well with him. I just don't think he liked that. That's not his style. And so rather than finding ways to take that, we had this amazing team that could basically tackle anything media-wise. So instead of reshifting focus for that team, it's just easier to get rid of all of them, and it some really good things came out of it, some good things came out of it, but it definitely had some people scratching their heads, and we've seen the changes since. There's a new owner, there's a new leader, and I think we're starting to see a move back towards some of the things that, while still, and this is the nice part, right? Because I think Greg wanting to focus on health and wanting to bring more people into the fold from the sports standpoint, from the sanctioned event owners and people that were doing really good jobs in the community and bringing them in, I think that was a great idea too. I think you could have had a marriage of both, though, and I think that's what we'll see going forward. I think that's what with Dave Castro, with Justin Berg, what Eric Rosa and his team are looking towards. And I think now we'll get to see, and sometimes they say you have to crack a few eggs to get an omelet. Yeah. Sometimes you have to backtrack and you have to wiggle around a little bit and you have to undo some decisions, and sometimes your decisions are mistakes and whatever. But we're here now and we're moving forward, and I hope I can be a part of it in any way, shape, or form, because I love it, obviously. And I think I've always said that somewhere on down the line, someone's going to write a book about the 2019 and 2020 seasons, right?
Yeah.
Because the truth is stranger than fiction here. It's just like you couldn't make it up.
No. I mean, in so many ways. I mean, not only CrossFit as a company, as a sport, the world. So, before we get into that, I was going to ask you whether the new owner with Eric, whether you feel it's it's fresh air that we need it, whether he has the right, whether he's the right person. Of course, I have no idea what he thinks. I've done my research, and I'm trying to understand. I see some really cool things happening, and I think everybody seems to be very excited. What is your thinking about the new owner?
Well, I'm definitely excited and optimistic, that's for sure. I think it was quite obvious that some change was needed, and when you look at the things that you would want for someone that is about to take over CrossFit, the first ever ownership change in history for the company, the first long-term, I want to say long-term CEO change, because and that, Jeffrey Kane was the CEO for a few years, but that was short-lived, and he ultimately left the company. And he's I think he's a good dude. This is going to be a long-term foreseeable change for the CEO and leadership of the company. You
Absolutely.
want them to be a dedicated member of the community, right? You want them to be able to understand the community and the sport on a multitude of levels, not just at the top or not just at the bottom. And you want someone who has some experience now running, growing, and leading a international or multinational company that has a rabid fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Or a dedicated fan base. And when you looked at the options that were out there, it's hard to imagine someone that checks those boxes better than Eric Roza at this time. He's almost a 10-year affiliate owner. He's getting there. He runs an excellent affiliate in Boulder, Colorado, CrossFit Sanitas, where they get dedicated community there. They love how it's run. Everyone has good things to say about the gym. He is, from an affiliate, from a trainer, from a master's athlete standpoint, he is involved at multiple levels, and he has led a company through the startup phase, through acquisition, stayed on through acquisition, and worked as an executive in that company. He's been on the board of multiple other companies as well, and so he understands what it's like to fly at that atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And he can understand the journey to get there as well, and hopefully bring CrossFit to that atmosphere to really maximize its potential. So I think there's a lot of good things, and everything I've heard from everyone who's talked is he's just doing a lot of listening, which I think is crucial early on. If you come in and you start swinging the axe and you start, redecorating the house right away, instead of actually taking time to look and examine and understand, those are all good signs, and he's supposed to come on our podcast on Talking Elite Fitness at some point, and I'm excited to have him on when he can. Obviously, he's very busy right now trying to figure out a lot of stuff, but a lot of signs are positive right now, and so I think there's a lot to be optimistic about, and I think that's where I'm at.
That's exciting. That's very exciting. I look forward to hearing the podcast with him, because I also had that feeling of maturity. It did feel like he was at a different level. He just became CEO. The world's a mess. The company's a mess. Everyone has an opinion. They're willing to just kill you on day one. And it did feel like he had no rush, that he was just willing to just give it time to listen, to talk. I bet if I DM him on Instagram, he's gonna actually reply eventually. It feels like he's that kind of guy. And actually, what you said about him being, having the knowledge of the community and actually running an affiliate, I think he sounds like the perfect guy. So I'm looking forward to see me at your podcast and see how things go. But of course, like you were mentioning, you're like rather tired today because you've had like 3 very intense days the past weekend, and they've been extremely intense. We have the online part of the CrossFit Games, and I guess we could talk about it. I'm not going to steal a ton of time from you, but I guess the question is, we could talk about for hours, but the question is it a done deal? Are Matt and Tia like in a different league? Is anyone going to be able to beat them?
No. I'll straight up and say it. Like, barring some crazy change of programming, if the test of fitness falls in line with what we've come to understand are the necessary requirements to test fitness and find the fittest, then by every measurable data point, they're the fittest, and they have been for a long time. So I don't think, if they're healthy and they're 100%, they're going to win. If they're healthy and they're like 98%, they're still going to win. If they're 95%, they'll still win. I use this stat on the show a couple times, but there's 5 athletes going to Aromas alongside Matt, and those 4 other athletes across the 7 events they competed at, that equals 28 times they went head to head with Matt Fraser, right? So in order for Matt to lose, you need those athletes to be able to beat him in head-to-head matchups and push him down the leaderboard. In 28 head-to-head matchups, Matt beat them 25 times. There's only 3 times across the entire weekend that one of those 4 athletes managed to even beat him in a workout. None of the athletes managed to do it more than once, so no one did it twice. And the combined total that they beat him by, if you took the 3 times they beat him and mashed it all up together, one athlete beat him by 12 pounds in a front squat. That was it. Noah beat him by 2 seconds in a handstand. And then one athlete beat him by 1.9 seconds in the row. So across 28 different tests, the only advantage they had over Matt Fraser is 3.9 seconds and 12 pounds. How do you beat that?
Possible. And he wasn't pissed off, and he was in a good mood. He was at home with his girlfriend. So if you put him in aromas and you tell him that there's a bit of a battle, he's gonna go all in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's exciting, but at the same time, how do you feel about the format? Because I really think, Matt and Tia, they still have to go there and deliver. But do you think the format of just being them 5 is going to bring anything new to the conversation?
I think that we'll get to see maybe some surprise elements thrown in for programming. Dave, what Dave excels at is he doesn't rule anything out. If something comes up that, that's not appropriate for this year, or I don't think that's a great test right now, he still keeps that stored away. In 10 years, 8 years down the line, you can see it show up when he feels that either the timing is right, the environment is right, the athletes are ripe to test that, or the shifting of the community dictates that. So I think he keeps his eyes open at all times, eyes and ears open at all times, and has a lot of stuff in his back pocket that he can bring to the table. Now, with only 5 athletes on the field of play for a given workout, there's a lot of things that you can do with movement and workouts that you can't necessarily do when you're confined to 10 athletes side by side. A little bit more space to work with when you're like on a competition floor, a little bit more space and time to work with when you don't have to worry about running 4 heats of 10. Mm-hmm. If Castro wants to do an hour-long workout, he can do that and not have to find a way to get them all on the floor at once and worry about a 4 hours of a given workout. He can do an hour-long event, do 2 heats, or do 1 heat and have at it. So there's a lot of things that are available to him now more that I think he's really going to explore, especially being in his backyard on the home he grew up in. He knows that land and that space better than anyone, and so I think we'll see some exciting stuff. And I think that honestly, I think that plays to Matt and Tia more. Their mindset, and they have that competitive fire that, like I talked about, where I like to just go push myself and find out what's possible. That's for me in my life and things that aren't nearly as high level as what they're doing. But you see that switch for them too. And I think they're going to absolutely attack it even more aggressively, knowing that if they mess up, there's only a couple other athletes there that they have to worry about. And they can keep an eye on each one of them simultaneously. So it's going to be fun. I am really excited for it. And I will say this. The format, if Matt and Tia win, I think it only emboldens their claim across their career, because now we've seen them win under the old circumstances, right? We've seen them win under 2019's circumstances, and we've seen them win under 2020's circumstances. So now really there's no situation that you can throw at them that they're not going to win, that they're not going to find a way to overcome. And I think that makes them a much more versatile champion, I think, in the halls of history when they go down in CrossFit.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. They look more solid than ever, and yet last year the famous cut, mm-hmm. It was such a different, the vibe was so different, and we did hear people complain, but Matt and Tia, they were up there. This year the world changes, the format changes. You know, they travel more. Well, not this year, but you know, if you're number one, everybody wants to see you. You're traveling. Your life changes. You cannot just be like on your own. You know, just training, and they're still up there. So I completely agree with you, and you got me very excited with the idea of pushing the creativity of Dave, and I just got excited about this 1 hour workout, or maybe just I got excited about seeing new things, because up to now we've seen like very old school workouts, and and it's been very exciting to see. I mean, Friendly Friend, it was scary to see Matt Fraser do it unbroken and not sweat almost.
Yeah, I think, and here's where, like, some people might argue that they wish some of the workouts were longer, and people can argue whether or not they thought it was a good test. But what I thought they did a really good job of is they gave a lot of these classic benchmarks a facelift, right? To be able to better test the best in the sport, while also giving us that mental we have like that mental anchor in our heads, like, I know as a fan and as just a general person what Fran feels like. I know what Nancy feels like. I know what Diane feels like. Now I'm watching them do a harder version of that, better than I would do the regular version. And now you have an educated fan being able to tie into, from a physical and a mental aspect, to what these athletes are doing. And I think that's an aspect of the storytelling of the games that when we were at our peak on the media team, we did really well. Mm-hmm. I think it's something about the sport of CrossFit that is slightly different than any other sport. There's a physical engagement with the fans that, I can go to a football game. Now, granted, I played some high-level American football in my life, so mm-hmm. I can relate to some elements of it. But the average NFL football fan has no idea what it's like to catch a pass or catch a touchdown, or get hit by someone who is much bigger and stronger than you. Or the average NBA fan doesn't know what it's like to dunk a basketball. Mm-hmm. But every CrossFitter out there knows what it's like to do a thruster, knows what it's like to max out their clean, knows what it's like to hit failure on a handstand push-up, or be breathing through a straw on a set of bar-facing burpees. And that baseline level of understanding you just don't get in other sports. And I think that's really what separates CrossFit as a sport for the future, and what made it so popular early on.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed last weekend, and I cannot wait for the real deal at the Aromas. And I look at the men, and there are three guys that I literally almost don't know. And so I mean, of course I do know them, but I don't know what they can do, because I don't know whether they're in a great moment in their lives. Okay, Justin, Samuel, can you give us a bit more of an idea of who these guys are and what can we expect from them in Aromas?
We'll start top down. So Justin Medeiros, I think Justin Medeiros could be the next. He could be one of the similar to Haley Adams on the women's side. I think he can be the future. He's the next future young star for the men. At 21 years old, he's been to regionals multiple times. So he was a teenage athlete. He didn't qualify for the games. But that next year, when he aged up, all of the teenage games athletes weren't able to qualify for regionals. He was the only athlete that was able to qualify in his first year in the adult division as an 18-year-old high schooler. And he finished, I think, 14th or 15th, maybe 16th that year at the California Regional back in the day. So he's been good for a long time. Just outside of the radar. I wrote an article back in 2015 of like 10 athletes to watch for this season, and he was at the top of my list. I was like, this kid, he's going to be good at some point. He's a wrestler. He's a wrestler. And he was a high-level wrestler. High-level wrestling, the training for that is absolutely awful. It's grueling, and it's the closest thing I can think mindset-wise and approach-wise to what we do in CrossFit at a high level. So I think the mindset that he has fits really well. And then it was just him shoring up a few things. He's got a great coach in Adam Neifer from CrossFit Fort Vancouver up in Washington. Adam was the last Team USA coach for the Invitational back in 2018. he also coached and was on the team for CrossFit Fort Vancouver, which up until 2018 or 2017 had put a team at the games every single year since the team competition started. So he's got a great guy in his corner that is coaching him and helping him develop. And I think I just think it's I would have said before the season started, it's only a matter of time before we see him at the top of the leaderboard at the games, but that's already come. He won Filthy 150 last year. That's how he got his ticket to the games. He beat 5 to 6 other established games vets in the process. So he's that young gun that a lot of people just, if you didn't watch the Filthy 150, and if you haven't been paying attention to regionals, you would have never seen him. And that's understandable because the Filthy 150 was the first event. But he's someone that I've kind of had my eye on for quite some time. He's young, he's committed, he's a good kid. He's like at heart, he's a good person, and I think that's really important as well. Sam Quant is it's funny. I was talking about this yesterday with a few friends. He had a series of events that, by no fault of his own, kept him just outside of the spotlight, which is why no one saw him. So he qualified for the games as a 20-year-old 4 years ago. Yeah. And his first year at the games, he finishes in the teens, so very respectable finish, top 20. He wins double DT, grueling workout, a named workout, which I think is significant here because double DT was a beefed up version of a classic workout.
Yep.
And then he has his second year at the games, finishes top 20 again, but it's a slight regression. So if you look on the leaderboard and you just go look at stats, you're like, oh, he dropped a little bit. That immediately turns off the casual viewer just a little bit. Come back the next year, before the season even starts, he has a knee injury that ends his year. So now you've had an athlete that, in the casual fan's eye, he regressed a little bit. Oh, he's out for a year. It's easy for him to fall out of the mind's eye at that point. Comes back next year, actually has a career best finish in 2019, but he finishes 13th. And all of the focus at the games last year was on the top 10 and the big names that didn't make the top 10. So you have to excuse me.
No problem.
I sneeze. You can edit that out.
We will. Don't worry. If you go for 4, then we'll keep it and we'll call it a PR.
Oh man, I'm 3 all the time, like clockwork. So then in all of these situations, he's understandably just outside of the focus, right? So he was just outside of the top 10 in the year where all that mattered was making the top 10. He got injured, so he was out of the spotlight for a year. And he had a slight regression from his rookie year to his sophomore year. So all of those things take the eyes off of you. So it takes a really dedicated, educated viewer to see that. I love the sport so much. I had almost forgot about him until I started doing my research leading up to the weekend. And so I did some videos with the Morning Chalk Up about dark horse athletes to watch. And I was like, oh my gosh, Sam Quant, 100%. Nobody's talking about him. He is ready to make that leap. And it worked out.
Again. You nailed it again.
And then Jeffrey Adler was someone actually, 20.4, the workout, was one of the most difficult workouts for me. And I thought in the open as of the long test in a long time. The combination of the weight, the pistols, the box jumps, and really the interference that were built into that workout, I think made it a very higher order workout, a more regionals-esque workout. And seeing him win that workout worldwide a minute ahead of Matt Fraser, that doesn't happen by chance, right? Matt doesn't give up points very easily. We talked about that earlier. And so that was kind of like, okay, this guy, I need to pay attention to this guy. Obviously, he finishes, the top 5 worldwide. He's the Canadian national champion. But so we decided to dedicate a 4-part series for him on Morning Chalk Up in Dubai, just to follow him around. He finishes Dubai top 10, has a strong finish, has a good weekend. And I thought, okay, he has the physical tools. If he can shore up some of the mental tools and the mindset stuff, he's gonna be a top 10 athlete. Moving to the online format at home, you take away some of that outside stimulus,
The noise.
and I think allows him to focus in. I know his coach. I've trained at his gym before. He's got a great setup there, something that really conducive to him, and he's got the physical gifts to be one of those top 5 athletes. And so I think it was a nice cross section here for him to be able to do that. And shout out, we said this on the show. Shout out to his coach. She saved his spot at the games. After Friendly Fran,
Yeah.
he came down from the pull bar and collapsed. But you have to get up and run across the finish line. There, she came out of she was in the camera frame. You could see it. He collapses. She runs over. Get up, get up, get up. You got to finish. And he goes, oh my God. And he gets up and jumps across the finish line.
I have to see that.
If he was 1 second slower and she didn't call him out on that, he doesn't go to the games. Or he doesn't go to Aromas.
Jesus, that's why you need a coach and a friend and just one of those that's willing to, well, that's there for you, right?
Yeah.
Crazy. What a moment. But I guess being the top 5 this year, you really have to do it. Probably was not that crucial moment, but you just have to do so many things right for so many years actually because this year some big names the biggest names in the sport are out, and we have like 3 up and comers and Matt and Noah, and just let's see what happens. And let's see what happens. I mean, probably Dave is going to look at this and it's going to go like, okay, I can do something really, really crazy, and you never know. But I guess it's only Matt can lose it.
Yeah, there's a ton of good stuff to look at otherwise. Like, Noah, the question was always going to be, is he ever going to make the podium? He had a magical year last year. And now he looks like he's a great opportunity to back that up. And
absolutely.
that's a great story. Like, once he made the leap, now he's able to now adapt and overcome and lead from the front a little bit. Yeah. Obviously he's going to be runner up to Matt Fraser every time. But the fact that he has built himself into a perennial podium athlete, if he goes to Aromas and walks away with a medal, that's a great story too for an athlete that can't. The story about him used to be that he would be so close, but he would mess it up somehow. He would have that one workout that he just messed up and ruined his chances, and he can rewrite his story a little bit. And I think that's beautiful.
Let's see. We're going to have a really I think it's going to be a fantastic weekend, and we're going to love the sport and the setup and the story and how the world is. I think we really need that excitement, that inspiration for the entire community. I couldn't be more excited, and of course I'm also excited to see the ladies. I mean, we have 5 super strong athletes, and Tia can there be any surprise there as well?
No, I think Tia is. It's crazy because the first year Tia's the race between her and Cara was so close, and then it looked like maybe Laura could push her that second year, and then last year training with Matt and being in that they're in that championship environment every single day. What they've got going on with them, they're like brother and sister. Shane, Tia's husband, and their coach understands them at a level that nobody else does from that coach athlete relationship. They're every day they show up and they go to work out to train. They're in a championship environment. Imagine every day you wake up and it's it's the Champions League final every day. It's every day it's the La Liga final. And
that tension.
And iron sharpens iron, right? You're forged by that fire, and so eventually that type of environment becomes normal for you. And that's scary when they can walk into the biggest stage and it just feels like they're working out in their gym. Like, I don't know what that feels like, but you can see it when it happens, and it's amazing to watch. And Tia, I would say Tia has had a bigger transformation as an athlete, at least in this sport, than almost anyone. You go back to 2016, you watch the documentary, she was full of self-doubt, negative self-talk. Her mindset was all over the place. She didn't believe in herself. And it's completely turned around. Like, she is so rock solid and so motivated and focused, and she basically walks out there with no doubt now. And I love seeing that. I love seeing someone rewrite their story like that.
It's scary, and they both look solid and mature. That's why I was thinking, okay, we have Brooke, Haley, Catherine, and Carrie. It's going to be an incredibly exciting competition, and I really hope there's a battle that we're not expecting, but yeah, I think just having those 10 athletes, there are a ton of stories, and let's see what Dave comes up with, and it's gonna be just a. I'm glad that the world has given us the chance to see something different. I think we're it's definitely not going to be the same thing as last year, of course, and but it's going to be different from everything else. I don't think we'll ever going to see this again. This sort of 5 people invitational, where in Aroma's such a historical place. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm hoping that we can talk to you again at some point after the games. So I mean we'll enjoy you during the games. We'll pay attention to what you have to say, and hopefully you'll give us that information that we enjoy. But
100%.
No, I mean it's funny, like we must have you. For me as a fan, the games is. It's just you, your knowledge, your vibe, your insight. I don't read sport well. I'm a classic fan. I get emotional. I'm there with the athletes, and I feel the intensity, and I've been to games. I'm screaming, but I really enjoy having someone just delivering the information that gets me as well excited, and it calms me down, and it focuses me. So I'm definitely gonna pay attention for what you have to say, and I'd love to hear from you after the games and get a bit of an idea of what you thought, because as a fan, I really enjoy the way you sort of make sense of things, and you point us in the right direction. And then again, you actually almost knew the guys that were going to make it top 5 this year. So it really shows that you have the knowledge. So Tommy, I think I'm gonna let you get some rest. I'm gonna thank you so much for talking to us today. You've had an incredible weekend, and we've had a wonderful conversation. I think you're a great guy, and the entire team here loves you. So hopefully we'll get to talk to you again sometime soon after the games.
Yes, appreciate the opportunity, Jordy. It's always a pleasure to get to see and talk to you, and I appreciate you as a human being and as a friend, and hopefully not just get to talk again, but hopefully we can get over this and we'll actually get to travel again and get to go see you out on the road.
It'll happen, and we'll do something crazy again.
Love it.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you.
Man.